In this video, we're sharing the 17 things that you need to know before traveling to Thailand. And chances are, if you're watching this video, you are planning a trip to Thailand and we have got you covered because the 17 points that we're about to make are based off our own experience here in Thailand and the mistakes that we have made here too. So we highly recommend you watch all the way through to the end because the knowledge and information that we're about to share with you is going to be super beneficial to your trip to Thailand. Number one, when is the best time to visit Thailand? So this is all about the seasons, and the peak season, the high season, is between the months of November to April. And the reason why they are the most popular months is because the weather here in Thailand is beautiful and it's very dry for the most part.
Although when we went to the islands, we actually experienced some rain. So sometimes you might be surprised because the island weather can be very challenging.
So the peak season is when obviously a lot of people are coming to Thailand. So from cold weather countries during the winter time, in North America, in Europe, even Russia, there is a lot of Russians here in Thailand. They are coming during this period of time. And what that does is it causes a lot of crowding. And so especially when we were in Phuket, we saw all the beaches were completely overrun by tourists. There was a lot of overcrowding. And because of the number of tourists that are coming to Thailand, of course, all the prices are kind of jacked up and it is actually quite expensive here in Thailand, which is a point we're going to be talking about later on in this video. And the low season is between the months of June to September, and it's the low season because the weather isn't very good here in Thailand. There is a lot of rain, it is very wet, and so what that means is not that many people are coming to Thailand compared to the peak season, and so prices really do significantly drop. Now, another good time to actually come to Thailand is in the shoulder months, which I believe are May and October. May and October. And the reason why these are good times to come, because you'll get a mix of weather. So you'll have some days where it's quite sunny and it's warm, and some days where it's kind of wet and rainy. But what you have is not so many people during these shoulder seasons in Thailand. And so the prices are quite reasonable compared to the peak season, which I come to the point again. It's not so cheap in Thailand anymore. Number two, visa and entry rules. I'm going to pass you over to our visa specialist, Karolina.
So if you're coming from Western countries like UK, US, Canada, Australia, you actually can enter visa free, and it depends on your passport. So it's usually 30 to 60 days, but definitely double check it before coming. But what all of the people need to do is to fill out the form called Thailand Digital Arrival Card. And it's pretty straightforward. 3 days in advance, before your flight, you need to fill in your personal data, your flight information, your address, and you will have the QR code to show on arrival.
So it's not that you necessarily need a visa, it's just you need to kind of do this process of getting the QR code so that when you're at immigration, you just need to scan through.
So make sure you do that, and we will put the link in the description for you down below.
Number three, cash is still king and ATMs are expensive. And if you can hear a bird in the background, this is a bird that you'll hear very often here in Bangkok. That's where we are right now. But anyways, when it comes to cash, don't expect it to be a cashless society. You're going to be using cash a lot. So if you're expecting to use a card everywhere, that's not going to work out. A lot of the times they'll have limits. So when we go to 7-Eleven, there's a limit of around 200 baht, which is a lot of things to buy from 7-Eleven. So it can be quite frustrating that you can't use card everywhere and you have to withdraw a lot of cash. So when you come to Thailand, you arrive at the airport, what we recommend is to withdraw from the airport so that you have cash on hand. And you might be asking, well,
Jay, that is a rookie error. It's cheaper to withdraw money from the ATMs out in the city.
Well, not here in Thailand. Actually, the fees are kind of extortionate here in Thailand because all the ATMs, I'm not even joking here. All the ATMs in Thailand charge a fee of, I believe it's between 220 to 250 baht.
Which is in US dollars around 6 to 8 US dollars, which is just insane.
Every time you want to withdraw cash in a society that is very cash heavy, you're going to be paying $6 to $8. So withdraw the maximum amount you can. Now, a little bit of a hack for people from the US, I believe with a Charles Schwab card, you can actually get that that ATM fee refunded with one of their cards. So have a little look into that. We travel with our own travel card, which saves us from fees when we're withdrawing. But when it comes to the actual ATM fee from the bank here in Thailand, we can't sometimes escape that. But with a Charles Schwab, you might be able to escape that. Again, the birds chirping away in the background. Yes. He wants to get involved in the video.
And also one thing, when you're withdrawing money, always make sure to press without conversion, because then you will actually save a little bit more on that.
Yeah, so never use your own currency from back home as the conversion. You want to be using the local currency. So never be pressing the US or the UK currency or wherever you're from. Number 4, Thailand is not cheap anymore. This will surprise a lot of people watching this video when I say Thailand is not cheap, because when you think of Southeast Asia, you think that, oh, the only thing that's going to be expensive is a flight over and everything else is cheap as chips. But actually, that is not the reality. The reality is that it's actually quite expensive in Thailand. And when we came into contact with a lot of travelers here in Thailand, the first thing they would actually start speaking to us about, without us being prompted, was how much they're spending here in Thailand. And we've had comments that it's actually cheaper to travel to Europe, to places like Spain and Italy. Just to give a bit of context, when we were staying in Phuket, our accommodation was, I believe, more expensive than our accommodation in Rome, in the historic center of Rome. So that can kind of give you an idea of the prices.
Like, let's just be clear here. We spent 5 days in Phuket, and per day, including the accommodation, it was almost $300. And we are not the travelers that we would stay at 5-star resorts. Like, we had a very nice apartment and the location was also good, but it wasn't like the beachfront, you know?
Yeah, it was a nice Airbnb. It was a bit old, but $150 per night. Yeah. We're here in January/February time, so this is peak season. As I said, it's very expensive. And Phuket is the most kind of, I would say, overpriced and expensive area of Thailand, but a lot of the places, all the islands, including Krabi, along the south, don't expect them to be cheap. They are the most expensive. You're gonna go up further north in Thailand, I think the prices are more reasonable. And here in Bangkok, actually, it's actually cheaper to be here in Bangkok than the south of Thailand.
Yeah.
And you'd think in a capital city that it would be more expensive.
Yeah, but also out of curiosity, I noted down all of the costs. And if you would like to dine in a restaurant or eat some sort of like a Western meal, we are looking at like $30 for a couple for a meal, which is just crazy. If you want to eat local food, it's way cheaper. It can be twice as less or like 3 times less.
I would say like the food prices aren't that bad. Like I would say that's not the thing that's the most expensive. I think it's first the flight getting over here from wherever you are in the world. That's gonna be the most expensive thing. But then the flights to the islands, like how much was the cost of flights
to Krabi? So from Bangkok to Krabi, we took a local airline, Nok Air, with 2 large suitcases. It was $157. But you need
for both of us.
For both of us. But you need to also calculate the transfers. So from the Krabi airport to our hotel to Ao Nang, where most of the people would be staying, it was around 800 Thai baht, which is around $25 US. In Phuket, actually, this is crazy. Like from the south, the area of Kata and Karan, we took a taxi to the airport, which is in the north. It took us 1.5 hours. Usually it takes less than an hour. But nevertheless, like the taxi was almost $50 US. It was
$50 US. Yeah. Actually, it said to me a price that was a little bit less than $50, and then by the end of it, because of traffic, there's a lot of traffic in Phuket, it was $50 just to take one transfer from our accommodation to the airport.
And on top of that, we actually paid $230 US for the flight from Phuket to Bangkok.
Number 5, Krabi versus Phuket. Which one is better? Which one should you go to? Should you go to both? And the answer is simply, we prefer Krabi. Phuket has a bit of a reputation. We'll come on to that shortly. It was actually not as bad as we thought, but would we go back to Phuket? I don't think we would. Now let's start with Krabi. We actually had a really good time in Krabi. Krabi is beautiful. It's very kind of amongst nature. There isn't as much traffic as in compared to Phuket. So even when you get off on the plane and you're arriving to your accommodation, It's calm, it feels very local, and you have such beautiful kind of landscapes, the limestone cliffs and all of the trees and palm trees. And Krabi itself is, Ao Nang, like town, is not really a cup of tea, but it's not that bad. It's not like probably, Patong, like Bangalore Road kind of thing.
It's quite nice, and actually what we like that you're on Ao Nang beach and you can take just 10 minutes long-tail boat straight to Railay beach. And it's just paradise.
Yeah.
It was very busy when we went there, but like...
It was overrun with people, let's be honest, but to be honest, with such a beautiful beach, I can understand it, and you shouldn't really expect it to be empty, right? I think Railay Beach was actually one of our favorite things we did. It was beautiful to come on the boat, have all the views, then you arrive on this kind of paradise beach with all the limestone cliffs, and then you can actually make your way around Railay to some other beaches, like the one with the cave at the end. I forgot the name.
There was a Princess Cave, and it was Na Prang Beach.
Now that was overcrowded. That was crazy. But if you saw how beautiful it was, I can understand that reason. And so in Krabi also, it's not just about the beach and drinking and eating, you can go do kayaking. One of our favorite things that we did in Krabi was going to do the kayaking through the beautiful mangrove forest. That was my highlight of Krabi.
It was something else. And also like taking a tour, like it's really advisable because the kayaking itself, it took like 2 to 3 hours, and doing it by yourself, it's feasible, but having a guide who is actually taking you through all of these paths, it was a lifesaver.
And one thing to mention is that we were staying at a gifted hotel that was very nice. Like that made our experience. It was called Pakisai Resort. Now they put us in the honeymoon suite, which I believe is like the top tier of the rooms.
Was so dreamy.
It made everything really nice. But the cost, how much was the cost per night of that room?
It was $285.
Yeah. So another thing to bear in mind is that just because we're saying Krabi's better, it doesn't mean it's cheaper. It's actually still quite expensive. Everything adds up, especially again during the high season. But we really had a great time in Krabi. What a beautiful place. We would come back to Krabi. And also the fire show on the beach.
It was something else.
We're at a beach club, I think called Reeve. And there's a minimum spend. I think it was like 2,500 baht. There are people just doing it, sitting on the beach for free. I was a little bit jealous of them that they got to do it for free, but they got to see all of the fire show.
Yeah, but to be honest, paying $80, it was around that.
80, it's expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive, but having literally the whole evening, couple of hours enjoying yourself, having a coconut, having some drinks, having some food, and then watching the fire show. And actually these guys like literally were coming to you, playing with the fire like it was nothing. To be honest, for me, the experience itself was really, really worth it.
So we really like Krabi. Now coming on to the controversial place, which is Phuket. Now Phuket has a reputation. A lot of people that we came into contact with in Krabi were like, don't go to Phuket, don't go there. We went there. But I think a lot of people, they have a little bit of a misunderstanding about Phuket because they go to Patong. They go to like the area where the Bangalore Road is, where all the sexpats and these kind of tourists just getting drunk and then having, happy endings and boom boom, this kind of thing. When we're coming onto this about Thailand, this is something maybe for conservative people that is quite shocking. But I think they stay in this area. And actually Phuket is a very big island. Kata and Karon, we liked it. Very nice beaches over there.
Very busy.
Very busy, very busy. But the food actually in Phuket is really good. But is it enough for us to come back to Phuket? No. One of the reasons is in Kata and Karon, it's overrun by Russians, and also I think in other parts of the island. We just think that for the same reason that I wouldn't want to go to Benidorm in the UK, where it's all British tourists. It's the same reason with Russians. And
it felt actually a little bit like this,
The Russian people actually, the ones we came into contact with, were actually quite nice. So there's maybe a bit of a stereotype about them, but they actually were fairly pleasant. I did get a few stares because they're not probably used to colored people, especially not like, white and brown. They're probably thinking Karolina's Russian.
Actually,
you've betrayed your bloodline.
Some people, when I was buying fruits or coconuts, started speaking to me in Russian, which is crazy, like being in Thailand and somebody speaking to you in Russian.
All the signs and all the menus, everything is catered towards Russians and then the Chinese, but mostly Russians.
But one thing that if you're coming to actually Phuket, like we would genuinely recommend going to Phuket Old Town, because this made our experience. Like we literally felt like back in like Malaysia with the senior Portuguese, senior Portuguese architecture, all of the coffee shops, and this is the area to do your shopping.
There was no Russians there, by the way. There was mostly Asian tourists, a mixture, and actually it felt like the first time we were actually on holiday, because just being around Russian tourists all the time on the beach, I felt a little bit like kind of outnumbered in a way, like it was just a bit too much. And we went to some other, we went to Rawai, which is like the digital nomad expat area, it's much more quieter, and that was quite nice. But I think that Phuket was just too expensive. Like if it was half the price, maybe would consider coming back. But I think there are better options in Thailand, better islands that are more affordable. Also to go on the PP day trip.
Such a highlight.
It was really good. I enjoyed it. I think that for a day trip, going to PP is a good idea. We're going to be talking about PP, whether you should stay on it again later on. But I think one of the things I was trying to say there is that getting to the port and back, again, it just wastes so much time. You have to get up super early. Actually, in Krabi, PP Islands is closer. So you're gonna have less of that kind of transfer time, and it's gonna be less waiting around to actually do the things you're wanting to do. So in a nutshell, we much preferred Krabi. Yes, we did. Love the place. Number 6, should you stay on the PP Islands? So you're probably wondering, should I do a day trip from Phuket or from Krabi, or should I actually stay on the PP Islands? Now, we didn't stay on the PP Islands, we did a day trip, and actually a lot of the people that we came into contact with actually recommended the day trip over staying on there. These are people who actually stayed on the PP Islands, and the reason being is that I think a lot of younger people who are more into the nightlife are going to the PP Islands. So we came in contact with an older couple who said, just do the day trip. And then we came across a much younger kind of couple, and they were like having a great time. So I think this is really about preference, about what type of traveler you are. If you want the party, the nightlife, then yeah, go for it. Stay on PP Islands. It's beautiful over there. It's a bit more limited of like what you can actually do on there. I think it's just, beautiful water, the island, the beach, and then the nightlife. It's got Burger King and McDonald's on it.
Like, so it tells you.
It tells you what you need to know about kind of what to expect. I'm not a big fan of that. I don't like to come onto a small island and see Burger King and McDonald's there. But I would say that for us, we much prefer doing the day trip. Number 7, Khao National Park. Now, unfortunately, we didn't have time to visit this very beautiful destination, and it's a bit of a regret for us that this time round we didn't have time for it. And so I don't want you to make potentially the same mistake and leaving it off your itinerary, because if you've seen it on social media, it looks like you're literally in Jurassic Park.
So usually what people do is to go there for 1 to 2 days, and people stay in floating bungalows. They do the kayaking around
floating
nature.
Bungalows, like on the water?
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. They do even things like the boat safari. So if you're a nature lover, I think that you should definitely put it on your list.
And number 8, don't forget an eSIM before you fly. When you land in Bangkok, everything feels exciting until you step out of the airport and realize you don't actually know how to get into the city, find your hotel, or navigate your way around. Between airport transfers, BTS and MRT lines, Grab pickups, and busy streets, you're relying on your phone straight away, and without data, it's incredibly easy to feel overwhelmed. That's why having the right eSIM before you land makes such a big difference. If you haven't used one before, it's basically a digital SIM card you install on your phone in seconds, no hunting for SIM shops, no airport queues, and no swapping physical SIM cards. You're connected the moment you land. The eSIM we personally use and recommend is SIM Local. They're the only travel eSIM company that partners directly with the best local network providers in each country, so you know you're getting the strongest and most reliable connection wherever you travel. Right now, their true unlimited plan gives you 10 days of unlimited data on a local network for just £9.50, which is $13. They're also rated 4.5 stars on Trustpilot, which gives you real peace of mind, especially knowing so many other travelers have had great experiences with them. And if you ever need help, their 24/7 customer support is available via call, message, or WhatsApp with real people behind the scenes, not just bots. All their plans include hotspot and tethering, so you can easily share your data with all your devices and even your travel partner, which is super handy on the go. They also have a super easy Find My Plan tool, which helps you choose the right option based on how long you're traveling and how much data you'll actually need. If you're planning a trip to Thailand, this is something we highly recommend sorting before you fly. It saves time, stress, and money once you arrive. Scan the QR code on screen or click the link in the description to check out SimLocal's Thailand plans, and don't forget to use our code JKarolina for 5% off. Number 9, how to find accommodation in Thailand. Now you're probably familiar with Booking.com, Agoda, Airbnb. These are the main platforms that you'll be wanting to use to book your accommodation in Thailand, but we have a little tip for you that we usually use before going to them platforms. So what we do is we go onto Google and then we go to Google Hotels. So there's a little kind of option to click hotels, and then you want to be researching the area that you are traveling to. Let's say it's Bangkok, and then you can like filter by price, by rating, by location, because it'll show you on the map. Now the good thing about Google is that actually it shows you all of the options across multiple platforms. So it's giving you more options at the price range that you're looking for. And so what this is doing is that it's opening up more opportunities for good accommodation that's affordable, as opposed just to sticking to one platform. Number 10, don't overpack. So us as travel content creators, we essentially live out of our suitcases. So we have very beautiful but very large suitcases from Carl Friedrich. And so when we're going around places like Japan, we were there for 2 months, it's perfect because we can load up our suitcases with all the goodies, all the shopping that we did in Japan to take home eventually. We've been away from home for like 8 months now, and it's going to be probably up to a year before we head back to Europe. And so for Thailand, don't do that. Don't bring large suitcases and don't overpack. And the reason why you don't want to bring large luggage is that, first of all, taking flights out from Bangkok to the islands, you don't want to be paying for oversized luggage and extra weight, which is what's been happening to us all the time. And also getting around on like the boats and the ferries across the islands, they're going to be chucking it onto the boat. We recommend, we'd say like medium size suitcases. You might be wondering, should I take a carry-on? We did see people with carry-ons, but in our opinion, you're gonna want some nice clothes for, you know, evenings out. And if you just are having small suitcases, like small carry-ons, you're just gonna be doing washing all the time. And we don't recommend that. There's some people who recommend that because it's easy, but do you really want to be washing and doing laundry all the time?
When it's hot and you will be sweating.
And you just want nice clothes. You don't want to be overdoing it, but you don't want to be underdoing it. So we don't recommend carry-ons. We recommend a medium-sized suitcase. Don't be that couple that has a small carry-on and a medium suitcase.
And a backpack.
And a backpack. And that's per person. That's too excessive. And when it comes to packing, you know, it's gonna be hot. Chances are, you know, Thailand is a very hot place. And so you will end up not actually using too much of your clothes and layers and things like that. You're gonna be, for me as a guy, I'm literally wearing the same t-shirts, the same shorts. Maybe I have some options for like evenings out. And for the ladies,
maybe some light dresses like to cover up for the temples and yeah, like not too much, I would say. Like
ladies don't overpack, essentially. Yeah. We're going to be coming on to temple etiquette later on, so don't worry, we'll cover that for especially for the ladies out there. Number 11, booking tours and experiences in Thailand. So you're probably planning all the destinations that you want to do in Thailand, but one thing that you want to also be paying attention to is what tours and activities you want to do in each place. And we highly recommend checking out an app called Klook. It's the #1 booking platform for tours and activities in Asia, and it's a great resource for researching these things that you want to do. And so what we do, for example, in Bangkok is you search Bangkok in the search bar and it'll give you a drop down of all the best tours and activities you can do in Bangkok. It's great for inspiration to see what you want to do, and you can use that across Thailand. And so for us, we went, the highlight of Phuket was actually not Phuket, it was doing a day tour to the PP Islands.
Yeah.
And so I believe 600,000 people booked that tour tour. We had a great time and we wouldn't have known about how to organize everything unless it was through Klook.
And what's actually really important is that you can pick your language and your own currency on Klook, so you exactly know what you're paying for. They would give you the QR code, so you don't have to worry about anything. You will just show this QR code to the person scanning it, and that's it.
Everything is on our phones on the Klook app. What's even better is that you can use our code to save money. If you use code JKarolinaKlook, you'll save some money, but also helps us out. We highly recommend using Klook, not just in Thailand, but worldwide. And this should give you some travel inspiration for the things you want to do here in Thailand. Number 12, transport. How do you actually get around Thailand?
So it actually really depends where you are, but let's start with Bangkok. When you land, the first thing you would need to do is to take the transportation into the city, and we would recommend to take a Grab, which is like an Uber of Asia, because it was pretty affordable. It was around $10 US.
And make sure you have the Grab app downloaded on your phone before you fly in. It'll just make things easier. And you can actually use the code WELCOME when you're actually booking the Grab, and you'll get 10% off. We saw like a sign saying 10% off, use this code. We've actually used it somehow twice here in Thailand. So a little bit of a money saving tip for you there.
Yeah, it works. And the transportation system here in Bangkok is very extensive. So first of all, you have the MRT, which is like the metro system here in Bangkok. You have the BTS SkyTrain, which is like the train in the sky, and both of these options are pretty affordable. But if you're actually doing most of the tourist stuff, like for example visiting the Grand Palace or Wat Arun or the Chinatown, you can take the boat on the Chao Phraya River, either the local boat or the tourist boat. Both are pretty affordable, and this is the best way to also not only move through the city but also to see the sights.
Yes.
We really like that.
One of our favorite ways to get around the city is definitely along the river.
Yeah.
And if you are staying next to an MRT or BTS line, definitely use that because it's very cheap and it's very convenient. But if you're doing all your touristing out in Bangkok, definitely the boats on the river.
Yeah, and another thing is, like, you will probably end up taking sometimes maybe a Grab within a city, but we wouldn't really recommend that because the Bangkok traffic is just crazy.
Yeah, if you can avoid taking Grab like on a motorbike or in a car, and have other options like the MRT or BTS, it's going to make your life easier because traffic in traffic in Bangkok is absolutely mental.
Yeah.
And maybe getting a motorbike, I've seen a lot of people taking the motorbikes, that's probably, they can weave in and out of the traffic.
One thing definitely that you need to do is to take the tuk-tuk. Like, it's such a classic Bangkok experience, especially during night. Like, it's really good.
All the neon lights and like sometimes they're playing music and
Yeah.
they're driving really fast, loud engine.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
Yeah, but one tip, definitely check first the price on the Grab from the place that you want to go there.
There is a electric tuk-tuk app. I will put the link in the description. I'll put a name here. We haven't taken that, but in terms of the other tuk-tuks, the kind of main ones here, you can't actually book them through Grab.
Yeah.
And so when you kind of hail one down, they'll actually charge you usually a very expensive price. Some of them are a bit scammy, so they'll charge you extortionate pricing. And so it's really helpful, like Karolina just said, just to check the price on the Grab app. And then when you go to negotiate, because it is a negotiation, don't just pay the first price. Say, hey, it's on Grab here. I'm going to pay you this. And we like to pay a little bit more than Grab just because they're offering a bit of a different service. And
it's an experience.
Yeah, it's an experience itself. But that's a great way to get around Bangkok. Now, when it comes to the islands, it's very different. So Grab isn't always widely available on the islands for obvious reasons. On places like Krabi and Phuket, it is available. Now, when we actually took the ferry from Krabi to Phuket, we were met by the taxi mafia. So the taxi mafia basically stops Grab drivers from coming into at least the port in Phuket. And so you're forced to take the other taxis, which are going to charge you extortionate pricing. You can't really do too much about that unless you want to walk quite far outside of the port area. But when it comes to actually being on the islands, outside of these areas, you can use Grab.
Yeah.
But it's usually more expensive. It'd be more justifiable in Bangkok where, you know, there's a lot of traffic and it's the capital city.
Yeah, and definitely for exploring the islands, we would recommend renting a scooter because it's really the best way to get to places that you want to go to.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that in the next point, but definitely renting a motorbike or a scooter is the best way to experience the islands.
Yeah.
And number 13, renting a motorbike or a scooter in Thailand. So when you're on the islands, like we said, the best way to experience the islands is to rent a motorbike. Now, how do you actually do that? So what we usually do is next to our accommodation, usually there's someone renting a motorbike because they know that tourists need them. But you can also search on Google and search motorbike rental, and you can look for one that has good reviews. The ones that have bad reviews is because they've had bad experiences, which can happen. And we're gonna kind of teach you how to avoid that. So once you've found someone, usually it costs around 250 to 300 baht for a motorbike.
Per day.
Per day. And usually it's over 125 cc, so over 50 cc. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is because technically you need a motorbike license and also an international driving license to rent a motorbike in Thailand. But of course, I would say 90% of the people renting motorbikes don't have that documentation. And so it's really at the discretion of the police. And we didn't see police. Actually, we don't see much police. We don't see much police presence here in Thailand. It must be very, it's very peaceful. Even like when we're riding the motorbike, we didn't see police. And so maybe when you're in really kind of areas where there's a lot of tourists who are drinking, and driving a moped and scooter, and that's why you have a lot of people who are falling off the motorbikes and having what they call like Thailand tattoos, where they have scars all over themselves. We've seen actually happen a lot. So one thing we do want to say is this is at your discretion of your risk, how much risk you're willing to take.
Or how comfortable you feel riding a bike.
And I feel very comfortable with a motorbike. It's like riding a bike for me. I rode a lot of electric bikes in the UK. And so I feel very comfortable and I just go very slow. And so even though we've shared that story with you, I still think the best way is to see the islands from the motorbike. It gives you a lot more flexibility, it's so much more convenient, it's cheaper. If you don't feel comfortable with that, fair enough, but then you're gonna have to hire drivers or use Grab. And let's say, for example, we were in Phuket, that's gonna add up very quickly because Phuket is a big island. That being said, we still highly recommend renting a motorbike or a scooter. So once you found someone, you're paying 250 to 300 baht per day. What you need to provide them is with a deposit. So usually that's 3,000 baht or your passport. And then when they actually provide you with the motorbike, they'll give you helmets. You then need to check the bike. So make sure you check, first of all, the fuel level, because they'll expect you to return it at the exact same fuel level. And in terms of fuel, it's actually very cheap. So we made the mistake of putting 100 baht into the motorbike and we're only renting it for like a day. And that literally fills it up full, completely full. And that can last you many days. When it also comes to checking the motorbike itself, make sure you take photos or take some videos of any of the damage around the motorbike. Just kind of do a little circle, because what can happen with some dodgy ones which have the bad reviews on Google is that when you come to return it, they'll say, hey, look, you've scratched this, you've damaged this, I need you to pay this. And it wasn't your fault. And that's essentially how you rent a motorbike in Thailand. Number 14, common scams you should be aware of. Now, unfortunately, where there is a lot of tourism, there's also a lot of scammy behavior. And one thing that happened to us, and we were kind of expecting it because it's a really popular scam here in Bangkok, is the Grand Palace is closed scam. So when you're arriving to Grand Palace, there'll be people coming on tuk-tuks. And what they'll say to you is the palace is closed. And the palace is open, I believe, every day. And so it definitely isn't closed. And what they will do is they will try to convince you to come and do a tour with them. So they'll get out a sheet of paper and they'll be like, oh, we can do this. I can take you on the most wonderful trip around Bangkok.
Floating markets and other stuff.
And they might even charge you a reasonable price. But the point is that they're entering it with a lie that something's closed, and that's very scammy behavior. And it happened to us as we were filming. And so if that was happening to us while we're filming and he was well aware of the camera, then that's likely to happen to you guys. So just be aware of that. Now, another thing that you can actually avoid by using Grab is when you arrive at the airport and taking taxis, make sure you're using Grab to check the pricing so that you're not unaware of the prices, so that taxi drivers can't scam you. But also take a metered taxi. Now, the problem with taking the metered taxi is that it can be rigged, and it can happen where you're taking the taxi and it's just going up and you think it's normal and you feel like you have no other choice than to pay it. So again, it's another reason why you should be using Grab to kind of check and track the pricing. Another scam is the motorbike scam, which is all about the damage. So again, just make sure you're taking photos, you're taking evidence of how you've received the bike. So when you go back to hand it off, they're not going to be like, you gotta pay 1,000 baht for this, 1,000 baht for that, which can happen. Number 15, how to dress for the temples in Thailand.
For all of you ladies out there, I know that outfit is important, but especially for the temples here in Bangkok, you would need to cover your shoulders, the cleavage and the knees, because they're very strict with that.
Even your back, just be very conservative as much as possible. They're actually quite strict here, especially in the temples in Bangkok.
Yeah, actually in the islands they were quite relaxed about that, so maybe you can carry a shawl with you, but it's not too bad. But also in front of the temples you will see people selling elephant pants. So if you're in need, how you were?
Yeah, I got elephant pants, guys. Yeah, I was that tourist, and actually everyone is doing it.
Yeah.
And even for the guys, they are quite strict about your knees. And so just make sure that you're covering your knees, get some elephant pants. It's quite fun, and actually it's very comfortable. And you get some nice kind of photos with the elephant pants on your touristing here in Bangkok. Number 16, Thailand's wild side. So we were quite shocked by some of the things that we've seen here in Thailand that you don't usually see in many other countries. And the first being how many weed shops there are in Bangkok, in Thailand. We're talking about marijuana. And they're kind of marketed in very bright neon colors, makes it look very playful, like you're going into a candy shop or candy store. And we actually went into one just to see what it was looking like, and there's clouds in the ceiling. And actually they have all the kind of weed types laid out, and even an iPad to choose the one you want to go for, and all the kind of flavor profiles. And so that's something to bear in mind. I believe that at some point in 2022, weed was decriminalized, but I think it's changed so that you need a prescription. But there are so many tourists who are smoking weed here in Thailand. For us not being weed smokers, smelling it
it's not the most pleasant all the time if you just want to grab a coffee and there's literally a weed shop next door, or even combined in one.
Some of you out there, it might be music to your ears, because there are a lot of people who love Thailand for the fact that they have the freedom to do this kind of stuff.
Another thing, we actually entered a Pat Pong night market, and I genuinely thought that it's going to be a shopping area where they're going to street food market. Yeah, we bought a mango sticky rice there, but they were dragging us to the ping pong shows.
That was our fault because we didn't do our research on the market. We decided to go there, and basically I thought it was beer pong or something, but the guy was talking about girls in bikinis, and I was like, what, lady boys? And anyways, ping pong shows are something very adult entertainment that involves ping pong balls being used in various ways, let's just say. And so there's that, and there's also a lot of sex tourism and they call them sex pats, I think, especially I think in Pattaya and in Patong in Phuket. It was quite shocking for me, and I don't always feel super comfortable seeing some of the things I'm seeing here in Thailand. Number 17, small things that make a big difference. We made a little list for you here. They drive on the left-hand side of the road, which is the right-hand side of the road for you Americans out there. It's very nice being from the UK, driving the motorbike. I don't need to worry about being driving on the wrong side of the road.
Don't drink tap water. So most of you coming here would be used to a different type of bacteria, so always buy bottled water.
The tap water is not safe to drink, and so sometimes you'll see water that's on tables in restaurants. That's usually filtered water. I usually avoid it. I just like to be safe and drink bottled water, but don't drink the tap water, otherwise you're gonna have Bangkok belly, which is not fun. And the next one is ice is usually safe in Thailand. So the ice is manufactured here in Thailand. Actually, you don't need to worry about the ice, because in places like Indonesia, they use homemade ice, which is gonna make, they're using the tap water to make the ice. But here in Thailand, it's manufactured. You don't need to worry about the ice.
Start with mild spice. So if you cannot handle spice whatsoever, say no chilies. If you can handle a little bit, just say 1 chili, because when you say less spice, it's going to be likely spicy.
Next one is English is widely spoken in tourist areas. So in Thailand, you don't really have to worry about them not speaking English, because in all the tourist areas, they're trained to speak English, even sometimes Russian, because there's a lot of Russians here in Thailand.
Carry tissues for public toilets. I would say that's very important, because actually most of the times there's no toilet paper.
Yeah, it's actually quite worrying when you go there and you need to go for a number 2 and there's no tissue paper. And so make sure you have some tissues on you. And sometimes don't be shocked if you see a hole in the ground, especially when you're on the islands. Yeah, that's a fun time. And the last one is tipping isn't expected like the US. So Thai people don't expect to be tipped. If you feel like you've had a really good service, you can tip them, but it's not really needed. We like to kind of do what we do in the UK and in Europe, which is if we get really good service, we like to give a tip. It's not expected, so it's not like the US where you need to give a tip for absolutely everything. And with that being said, we hope you enjoyed all of the information that we're sharing with you. If you have any comments and if you need any help, just put a comment in the comment section down below. It's been a long one. Sorry. Thank you for subscribing. Oh God. Thank you for watching and subscribe. Yeah, you guys. Oh God.